From bringing Henry Cavill back to his iconic role, to having his own vision of where to take the DCEU next, Dwayne Johnson definitely had a bunch of exciting things planned for the DC Universe, which is why the failure of Black Adam is such a huge disappointment for everyone involved. Just thinking about how much work and effort has gone into making this story is enough to make your head spin. The story was literally years in the making. Johnson himself was involved with its production for quite some time, and it was something that he clearly was very passionate about. In fact, it wasn't just this movie that he was planning. He seemed to have an entire plan for the DCEU moving forward, which supposedly even had Henry Cavill involved in some capacity. Say what you will about the whole thing, it's hard to deny that's something that had the potential to be great. It'd definitely be a huge hit among the fans, who were completely ecstatic to see Henry return to the role after so many years of absence. So the fact that Johnson's creative plan was completely abandoned by the studio with very little warning definitely must have stung. And even though I think James Gunn's plan for a fresh DCU is probably for the better, it's definitely clear that Dwayne deserved a bit more than he got, especially when you consider that some aspects of Black Adam were genuinely really great. While the movie's pace was a bit too fast, it's hard to deny that it sets up a bunch of things that would have been fun to see in the future. The main character, Teth Adam, being a sort of troubled anti-hero with his own unique backstory, felt like it had a ton of room to develop over a couple of sequels. Plus, having him star alongside a bunch of superheroes set in modern times offered the contrast needed to make the film balanced. The idea to include the Justice Society of America into the mix, while making the film a bit bloated, definitely showcased the potential that this story had. Especially if fans could see more of characters like Hawkman, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher in the future. Their sort of shaky alliance with Atom could have led to some interesting conflicts in the future, but it's just one of those things that fans will just have to wonder for themselves.
Root was a true champion of Kahndaq.
Though there's another reason why the film and star deserved more, and it's because he was clearly working to expand the Shazam franchise. While Dwayne was making it seem like a final showdown against Superman was his ultimate plan, there are tons of details in Black Adam that make it clear that Dwayne's goal was to expand the Shazam franchise in general.
He was also my son.
Take the demonic Sabbac, for example. While some fans may have been seeing this destructive champion for the first time, the fact of the matter is that this is one character that links Black Adam and Shazam, considering he's one of the toughest foes the superhero has gone against. The Council of Wizards also made a small appearance, with Jimon Hansu reprising his role. It's clear that there was definitely some thought put into making sure that the franchise was consistent and moving forward.
Instead of battling the king. Instead of saving Kahndaq.
Which goes in the face of any accusations that fans may have been making that Johnson was just winging it. Though it doesn't really matter what he had planned, because it's clear that the upcoming DCEU films are really just going to be wiping the slate clean for the new DCU to come in and start things from scratch. Fans will likely never get to see the version of the DC universe that Johnson had planned, and it just feels a little bit sad considering how much time had been put into planning all of it. There's also the fact that Johnson added a lot to the role of Black Adam. Everyone always talks about how Henry was born to play Superman, but let's talk a bit about Johnson too. His appearance as Black Adam was definitely amazing. I'd go as far as to say that his portrayal was on par with Cavill or Affleck's, even despite the fact that he was in a film that didn't exactly do so well. Plus, Johnson's efforts definitely helped to bring the character of Black Adam to the limelight.
But a curse.
He's been around since 1945, if you can believe it, and the character has a very storied and rich history that definitely deserved some limelight on the big screen. While many people like to think of him as a rival to Shazam, it can also be said that he's the perfect antithesis of Superman, which is why an eventual showdown between the two in the DC universe would have been the stuff of legends.
Born out of rage.
It helps that Dwayne's characterization of Black Adam was really on point. Of course, he added a bit of his own charm there, with a very dry sense of humor, but as far as the physique was concerned, it was just absolutely on point. It would have led to a very dominating on-screen appearance to rival Henry's portrayal of Superman. Honestly, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of how epic their fight would have been. It would have been one of those iconic superhero moments that may have helped DC reach the levels of the MCU. And I'm not talking about the quantity over quality Phase 4 MCU. No, I'm talking about Endgame. The amount of hype that existed back then was unbelievable. It truly felt like the culmination of something truly magnificent, and will definitely go down as one of the best comic book movie events of all time. If done well, Black Adam vs. Superman could have rivaled Endgame in terms of hype, and who knows, it may have even surpassed it. Of course, a lot of groundwork had to be laid before the encounter would have happened. But it was clear that Johnson and even Cavill were on board, so it was just a matter of time before fans would have seen this happen. But of course, Warner Brothers had other plans, which is why they scrapped the whole thing and got James Gunn involved. That's not to say that his new DCU can't reach the heights of the MCU, but it's still so far away that it's impossible to really speculate about it in any meaningful way. Though despite all of this, it's hard to ignore the glaring faults the movie had. The biggest, of course, was the script itself. The movie just didn't live up to the hype that so many fans had for it. And while it did serve as a great setup for things that could happen in the future, it was clear that they had spent so much time fantasizing over future events that they failed to make a good movie in the meantime. So it was no surprise that fans weren't exactly super excited to see this in the cinema, and the film barely managed to break even. I'm guessing the poor box office returns for Black Adam is ultimately what got Warner Brothers to break the "Call James Gunn" button, and it's understandable to some degree, because one of the worst things about DC has been the big promises they've made without actually living up to them. But still, it's hard not to wonder just what could have been if Johnson's vision of the DC universe actually played out. That said, it's not over just yet. In a recent interview, the star did mention that while Black Adam has been left out of the first chapter of the new DCU, the superhero may make an appearance later down the line. And it seems that The Rock is confident that he's going to retain the role of the superhero, which is good, I guess. Oh, and Gunn even stated that only about half of the projects in the DCU's first chapter have been revealed so far. So hold on to your capes, there may just be more Black Adam in the future, but that's all the reasons why Dwayne Johnson deserved better from the DCU.